Good evening and welcome to another edition of Open Season with Alan. I'm Alan. That's Brian.
Hello.
You know the deal. We've been coming to you from Down the Road Brewery for a little while now, and the stage hasn't changed as we come to you here from another Tuesday, taking you all the way up to 10 o'clock and recapping everything from the latest going-ons with the Celtics, the latest goings-on with the Patriots, which hasn't been a whole lot. I mean, to be honest, can't recognize a lot of these guys that they've signed outside of Bennett. But other pretty big news, obviously the contract today, $430 million. Did we catch that right?
I thought it was 420, which is nice little coded ring to it. A little 420 million, but 420, 430. What's 10 million when you've already collected nearly $500 million?
Mike Trout, I feel like he just said, see that Harper deal? Just put $100 million on it. You'll get my signature. Baseball's a weird place right now where I feel like the most interesting signings are guys that are already in contracts. You got Trout there. They don't even have a reason to pay him $400, and certainly he's an incredible player, but they don't have a reason to sign him to a contract to that magnitude right now. So I don't know. I kind of find it interesting where, feels like a lot of these guys that get signed are kind of extensions of other deals. Like it's basically like time to get paid but anyway, Mike Trout, the least exciting baseball player in the MLB, very unmarketable if you listen to the commissioner. But anyway, $430 million for him, so we'll be talking about that contract. We'll be hitting on a few other things. The Steelers, a couple of their guys getting signed to some contracts as Le'Veon Bell starts life out as a New York Jet. We talk about his contract, and Antonio Brown over to the Oakland Raiders. What do you think there in terms of the fallout? The Steelers still a contender? Is Antonio Brown the missing piece from a contending team with John Gruden? We'll be recapping all that as we also talk about how Vontaze Burfict actually cut from the Bengals. Would you take a flyer on him?
Ooh. I didn't catch that news, and would I take a flyer on him? Probably not. I would pass on that reclamation project.
Probably not, especially if you're a Pats fan. But I could definitely see somebody like Dallas, the Raiders.
Yep.
I think that could be a great reclamation project, as you kind of said. Obviously, the reason why he's cut and the reason why he's been fined more than any other player over the past few years is because, he's so dirty he can hardly even really stay on the field. He's pretty much good for like a 3-game suspension every year. But if you could somehow kind of...
He can play. Or I don't know if he can still play, but he could play.
He can lay the wood, too. Like, there's
absolutely.
A difference. Like, Brandon Spikes wasn't the greatest guy, but he could, when he hit you, you know what I mean? There's guys like that, too. And, Burfict, I think he's obviously better than Spikes, but there's some guys that just, when they hit you, it's a little bit different and kind of put that fear over the defense. Like, a guy like Dawkins for the Eagles used to be and stuff like that, so that you can't quite go over the middle, and you're just, that does something for the offense when you keep guys to the outside. If you have cover, if you have corners who can cover, talking about a whole different ball game. So we're talking about it all, taking all your calls, 502-501-3477. As we get into kind of the biggest things tonight. Now, I know we're tracking a Bruins game going on, so we will keep you updated as we get scores on that. Johnny Manziel, is anybody interested in the story about Johnny Manziel going to the AAF? I don't even know what he did, but apparently he completely voided his CFL contract. They didn't even really release details about that, but basically got banished from the CFL, going to the AAF. There's been a couple decent players who have played over there, but I've kind of been the same on Manziel the whole way through. I just really, not to say it told you so, I get tons of things wrong, but, I mean, he is just so small. I mean, I think he's like 5'9", and just really doesn't have the build. I think he's kind of like naturally like 180, 185. I feel like that first year in Cleveland when he actually got to play those last 3 games, it seemed like he was just absolutely running for his life. Like, I don't think he made one solid had time to make one decision. It just seemed like, I don't know, it looked like he was too small and just way overmatched. And I don't know, I kind of thought that's so many times at the next level, it's really about size. I mean, what are we talking, Dwayne Wade, if he's the size of LeBron James, he's LeBron James and the best player. So many of these guys, we talk about him, and honestly, the difference is, if you took Westbrook and made him a 7-footer, I mean, so much of it is actually what your guy given, but I just felt like Manziel has, he really succeeded for, 1 year at Texas A&M where he really blew everyone away. Then next year he kind of came back to earth and always felt like he was more of a celebrity more than like an actual guy that teams looked like was going to kind of revive them. I was a little bit surprised when Cleveland took him. I thought that was a little bit early for him, but I don't know. I just think this Johnny Manziel story, I feel like not too many people care, but I feel like they're going to kind of always – we always do this in America. We, love to watch our stars fall, rise. So you always get these things. But Manziel, confident he can still play at any level. Going to be under center for a team in Tennessee. I don't really know the AAF too well.
No, not many people do.
So, I mean –
but
shame on me.
Well, but maybe this is the opportunity for Manziel to put this new league on the map to some extent. I'm sure they're loving, the AAF is loving the controversy that he's generated.
Oh, absolutely.
Certainly. And I mean, if he certainly was too small, didn't have the arm for the NFL, but in the AAF, maybe
certainly.
Maybe he is that exciting player where they let him run all over the field and he produces some highlights, and maybe we finally, I doubt it, but can see a competing league to the NFL. I mean, many others have tried. You had the USFL. Wasn't that Trump's league back in the day?
Yeah.
Arena football, the
AAF seems to be like a better run at it, I guess, though. If I can say. It seems like they actually have attracted some pros over there, some decent talent, which I was, to be honest, surprised. It's tough to kind of bring on one of these leagues and actually put decent talent into it. So
without it being gimmicky,
right.
Like the XFL.
Or the guys are completely done and not real more figureheads or whatever. So yeah, and I mean as NFL free agency kind of goes around here and we look at what the Patriots are doing, what we look at other teams are doing, we just mentioned kind of, oh my God, as we just talk about it, the Raiders signed Burflick to a 1-year deal.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Hot off the presses.
Heard it here first. But then the Cowboys actually making a good signing, and actually a point that I was going to have kind of about free agency, and I think the way that the Patriots have actually changed things is you see a lot of these slot receivers getting taken up by other teams, and I think if this was another offseason maybe 3-4 years ago, I think we would have signed about 5 slot receivers this year. You had Golden Tate, you had Cole Beasley, you had all these guys from the slot. Humphreys exactly was the guy, too, that everybody's saying that they missed out on, that they had the money. I think they were there as far as but the Pats always will do something where they'll say that they were there with the money, but maybe they weren't there with the guarantees or whatever it is, because I remember they did the same thing with Welker, and then when you get behind closed doors, sometimes, there's always ways to fool around with contracts, and, the Patriots kind of have a little bit of a reputation for that, so. But Raiders bringing Burflicht into the fold. Cowboys, actually, what I was going to say, making an interesting signing with a guy who operates out of the slot, who we haven't heard a lot of from the past couple of years, but Randall Cobb, a guy that is a little bit older. Mm-hmm. I looked at him as a guy that would have been a great get for the Pats.
Oh, yeah,
Low money.
Definitely.
And what he is actually a route runner. You know what I mean? Like, I almost look at him as like maybe a faster version of like an old, Deion Branch or something, maybe being able to run some of those routes, maybe a little bit faster. Really thought that would have been a good thing. So wondering what the Patriots are doing right now, because aside from the splash that they made when they signed Bennett, and honestly, for my money, I like that move. I mean, you kind of look at it and you say, do you franchise Trey Flowers for $17 million? And it's definitely a consideration. He's a 26-year-old defensive end who can, not just play from the edge. He can also kind of get back into coverage as well and do a whole bunch of different things.
Can play the run.
So he can do a lot of different things. And you think for a second, but if you look at what the Pats did, they get rid of him for ultimately so what they do, they bring him in on his rookie contract, ride him out. He was a fourth-round pick. They get rid of that, and then the Lions are going to overpay. They're going to they paid like a 4-year, $84 million deal or something like that for him. So Pats probably knowing they couldn't sign him long-term, opt not to franchise him. Obviously, the Patriots, we only franchise field goal kickers around here. So, but interesting there. So I like the move actually to bring in Bennett. You're looking at $7.2 million from a salary perspective, and if you're looking at statistics, he hits the quarterback more than anybody not named Aaron Donald. So over the past 5 or 6 so years, so it's been a good sample size, and I think he was actually number 2 in quarterback hits last year as well. So he's a guy that he's at an advanced stage. I mean, certainly you want to build for the long term. Trey Flowers is the better pick, but with the Patriots maybe not looking in the longest term review with some of the salary considerations they're going to have to make. And as we talk about it, they really haven't addressed the wide receiver position, which I think is a glaring weakness for this team in the offseason. So remains to be seen what they're going to do there, but it looks like it's going to have to come in the form of a trade almost with the guys that have been signed. And we've seen it before. The Pats have traded a 4th-round pick for Randy Moss, traded a 2nd-round pick for Wes Welker. So we've definitely seen it happen before. But right now, it doesn't seem like there's really a target that the Patriots have. I mean,
well, don't count out the draft. They do have 5 picks within the top 100, not only this year, but next year as well.
Sure.
So
sure. I guess I just meant from a free agency standpoint. I thought they would have done a little bit more by now. Maybe not the biggest name, but I thought they would have brought in some form of slot receiver or one of those guys like I mentioned. I just feel like there's been a lot of maybe Patriot-type guys that have been out there that just – I just feel like the Patriots really haven't been in on a lot of free agents. They've let a lot of guys go, and I think Trey Flowers and Brown for that and Trent Brown for the money. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't sign those deals, but what talent have they really brought in? Looking at this team, they won the Super Bowl, but they really haven't done much to shore that out. Guys have left. And kind of looking around to see if they're going to make any type of move here in free agency. It doesn't look like there's too many impending guys left. I know Ndamukong Suh has definitely been brought up as a name, which would really be interesting for me because I think, to get that guy committed, if you could actually get through to that guy, now that's probably a bigger if than any of us want to count, but if you could actually get through to a guy like Sue, I mean, I think the talent's just off the map, and I think that guy's still, 28, 29?
Yep.
I mean, he's definitely not 30 yet. So I think that would definitely be an interesting signing to watch. But, a lot of interesting things to look at. I mean, I just feel like the NFL offseason is in full force right now as the number one pick comes down, and they'll look at the Cardinals selecting there with having taken Josh Rosen last year at the number 10 pick. It looks like Cliff Kingsbury is pretty much in bed with Kyler Murray. So can Kyler Murray be worth basically throwing away that? If they sign Kyler Murray, they're definitely going to have to get rid of Josh Rosen. I mean, somebody that they took 10th overall, and how many times do we see quarterback? I mean, you're basically throwing away that number 10 pick at quarterback to bring in a number 1 pick at quarterback the next year. Kyler Murray better be the real deal if you're willing to make that mortgage. And for me, Brian, I don't know if you've seen Kyler Murray play too much.
I haven't.
But I'll say this. When I watch him, I think he's incredible. I think he can pretty much do anything that you ask a quarterback to do. He can make all the throws. He's accurate. He can move. He's just tiny.
I was gonna ask, is he looks, because I've seen some of his scouting combine tape and whatnot. He looks like I guess body-wise, he kind of looks like a Drew Brees comp. Or is he more Johnny Manziel?
I almost want to say that Drew Brees looks even more solid than him. I feel like that number that I think he weighed in at like 208, which got everybody impressed. But I honestly feel like that was probably a few weeks of eat as much as you can, lift weights before the. Like, I don't think he walks around at a 208. And I mean, it's almost like, feel like it's kind of like when you create your own player in a video game, when you create yourself,
yep,
and you see what you look like versus them. I feel like that's kind of how. So when I watch the film, I am really taken aback because I figured there's going to be a lot of holes in this guy's game or something, but he really is a guy that looks to make a couple reads before he runs and then can run exceptionally well. Like, he's a pass-first guy who can throw it accurately, who can throw it deep, who can move around. I mean, he can really do anything you ask, but I just wonder how much he can hold up against the NFL beatdowns. I mean, these guys just end up getting hit. Michael Vick was pretty much the best guy I ever saw in open space, and when you run the ball, you're going to get hit. And, I mean, how many times can you take that at a 186-pound frame or so? So, like I said, I feel like he's a lot closer to that weight than the 208 that he posted at the Combine. And I don't know if when he's in a jersey, if you're going to see him at 208 pounds.
Well, I mean, if
you look at him, and I guess one more thing to add on that, he almost looks like a little kid. Like if you compared to other people, like when they show him around his teammates, he almost looks. You're like, who's this 10-year-old? Like amongst the team, you know what I mean? He looks a little and
looks
young,
like the water boy, and
so it's like. The guy can really do everything from a college perspective, but I just wonder how many licks can that guy take would definitely be my concern. And if you're Arizona, he's got to work out if you're going to mortgage the number 10 pick. So I just think it's so crazy how these guys like Cliff Kingsbury, the guy wasn't even over 500 at Texas Tech or Texas A&M, whichever one he was, where he was part of Baker Mayfield and part of these other, these guys before they transferred to bigger programs or whatever. Guy didn't even have a 500 record, was at USC for 32 days before the Cardinals tab him as a head coach for a 4-year period. And it's just like, seems like they'll take anybody who's a quote-unquote offensive guru. And I mean, they better be right if they do take Kyler Murray with the first pick. I think it would definitely be interesting, and we'll definitely see. I don't think he has the frame to. I don't know. He just looks so damn small to me, but I don't know. As far as the NBA goes, we've seen the Lakers have just absolutely kind of shut things down. They have absolutely fallen apart. If you watched the other night, they had a game against the Knicks where LeBron James got blocked by Mario Hezonja to lose the game. Things have not worked out as anticipated from the guys upstairs in the Los Angeles Lakers organization, and I think a lot of people are kind of wondering, is this the end of the road for LeBron? And not so much the end of the road, but is anybody going to come out to L.A.? Is that a desirable situation? You see something where they're kind of going off the playoff track. They have LeBron, and then it's like a dumbbell. It's like LeBron, and then no one, and then just all these young kids. Like, it's just
none of those young players who've shown you anything that it's like you could package the entire rest of their starting lineup in a deal, and if you're the Pelicans, I mean, which I know that whole situation is not going to happen, but. Oh, yeah. Like anybody else, anybody else that might have a superstar looking at a contract year, the Lakers young guys haven't shown you anything that you want to acquire.
I think the only thing too that they've shown you is that they can get hurt, which is really and obviously being funny, but not. At this point, you could kind of look at Lonzo Ball as a guy that is almost played half of 2 NBA seasons now. So how much more leash do you give that guy before he's already injury plagued, 20, 21-year-old? And, I'm not buying any. I still think Lonzo Ball will be great, but you look at some of these guys, and Brandon Ingram shut down for the year. This was really the chance for a lot of these guys to be able to show what they could do. And exactly, the sell would have been, you come here with LeBron, you're in L.A., we trade our young pieces for a star, we sign someone in free agency, and then we're good to go. But things haven't worked out that way, and the assets, totally, you're right, they haven't panned out. I mean, honestly, I think they made a really great offer to the Pelicans. I don't know how the Pelicans turned that offer down to trade for all those players as well as picks.
Well, but
if you're going to trade I guess I'm trying to think of guys that have, you've go back, look at guys like Shaq. That you're never going to get accurate value when you trade when they traded KG, right?
Mm-hmm.
We gave a ton of crap and wrapped it around Al Jefferson,
right? And
said, "Here you go." I don't know.
I mean, kudos to Danny Ainge.
Exactly.
However he was able to sell that deal, it was even at the time, and Al Jefferson was a 20-10 player. An established 20-10 player at that time who didn't have injury history, looked like the future was all there for him, but even still, everything else around him, it was like, Minnesota, you took that? Really? Okay.
I guess it's just, I feel like it's tough to get adequate, trying to make money match plus players match and all that. How many teams have traded away a star and been like, we got a great package back from that? I'm sure you can look at some over history. There's always the blunders, but I feel like anytime you get rid of, like I mentioned, Shaq, do you think of any of the guys who are involved? You list these trades, KG. Do you even remember the guys that were involved in some of these trades? So. That's I don't know. things unraveling for the Lakers as they continue to lose. LeBron has already kind of publicly said that they're not going to be making the playoffs and all that. I mean, it's, they're basically mathematically almost pretty much out. But, was not expecting that from the Los Angeles Lakers going into this year. LeBron missing, I think, 18 straight games, his first legit kind of injury. But Luke Walton says they're not going to shut him down. For some reason, unbeknownst to me, you rest them all those games for the groin. They're out of the playoffs, and then say that you're not going to shut them down now. I can't understand this NBA. When guys play, when guys sit. I wish we could get back to a time where guys just tried to play 82 games. But things not going well in Lakerland, and that continues to be the story where it seems like there are really not a lot of guys being linked to going to LA in the offseason. We continue to hear the rumors about Kyrie Irving and Durant going to New York. We continue to hear Kawhi potentially going to the Clippers, but really not hearing a lot of guys going to LA. Now, we know that obviously Anthony Davis, his agent, Rich Paul, is the same as LeBron's. But I don't necessarily think that means that he's 100% going to the Lakers because, like we kind of said, are they ever going to make that trade now that, one, that all that stuff was kind of there in the first place, but then to go back, revive that, work through those pieces. One GM got fired over that.
Right.
Are they going to go back and dig in that? I don't know. So I don't know. It would seem like he's not at least – obviously the next year he can decide to go with LeBron in free agency, but at that point LeBron's going to be about 35. So you're almost looking at L.A. as, I think it was a year or two ago, everybody said that would be a great place to go. Look at the picks they've established. They've got Magic Johnson and Rob Pelinka leading things over there. And it's just really been a disaster this year. And obviously ESPN can't get enough of it because that's really all you hear. But how about this? Elfrid Payton. Now, is that a familiar name to
Elfrid? What?
Elfrid Payton.
Keebler Elf? What?
Elfrid Payton making NBA history, tying a couple other guys, Michael Jordan, Russell Westbrook.
I know those names.
Elfrid Payton with 5 consecutive triple-doubles. Oh. This is a guy who averages like 10 points, 7 assists, 5 straight triple-doubles. I don't know. I don't even know how to put that into hockey equation for you. But, this is like a scrub point. Not a scrub point guard, but, triple-doubles, I feel like they're just kind of coming left and right now. And I don't know if this is going to be something where we look at Russell Westbrook in the future. I feel like history is going to be very kind to Russell Westbrook. We'll say, holy crap, that guy averaged a triple-double for 3 years. How can he – but is it easier for guards now to get triple-doubles because the centers aren't so much there to clog it up? And – like you see guys like Harden averaging 8 rebounds a game, whereas
Kyrie going on a recent rebound binge.
Whereas you saw guys like Scottie Pippen back in the day. 8 rebounds is like a high year for.
So I would say it. There is definitely some transition going because the flip side of that is you're starting to see bigs like Jokic, who are the best facilitators on their teams.
Yeah.
So I think the transition to a kind of you have a one big with like 4 wings, right? The sort of the Celtics.
Yeah.
Core lineup, like where, I think that's
it's
opening it up
what
for
they do in college.
Yep.
You basically get that big guy to get all the boards, put all the shooters out on the perimeter.
And that's going to open it up for a guard in the traditional sense to pick up a lot of rebounds, much like it's opening it up for the centers to get that ball, in the paint, like around the foul line, and just survey who's cutting where and dish it off and get lots of assists. So it's a pretty interesting change that's going on in the NBA. Scoring is way up, right? Like scoring, the Celtics won a game recently. It was against the Kings, where they let up 120 points, which is not the Celtics basketball of the KG era, that's for sure. And yeah, no, I think I think with what's interesting is because you look at the NHL and scoring is up in the NHL, but so much of that has to do with rule changes. Yep. Whereas scoring being up in the NBA, I think, is a lot more of schematic and the lineups that are being rolled out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a lot of positionless basketball, and you're watching a lot of guys that are 6'10" play like guards. I mean, you pretty much have most of the guys on the team playing like shooting guards almost. I feel like is how the game has kind of evolved a bit. It's what you used to think of as a shooting guard, a guy that would be kind of like 25-5, like a top-notch like shooting guard. Everybody's kind of getting those 5 rebounds, 5 assists. I feel like it's a lot more fluid. We've definitely gotten. Everybody's trying to play kind of like those 2014 Spurs, where the ball just doesn't stick at all. And I feel like that's what the best teams are doing. Like teams like the Warriors, teams like the Nuggets, the ball doesn't stick. It's not a lot of superstars. It's a lot of unselfish play. But I don't know. The Celtics currently at a number 5 seed, but I got to tell you, I've continued to say this. I don't even necessarily love this Celtics team, but I just think this team is going to put on some type of run. Not saying they're going to win the championship, not saying they're even necessarily going to get all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals, but I feel like this team just has too much talent. I feel like this team just hasn't quite flipped the switch that we want it to. They'll play some great games, and then we look at them, like some of the efforts that you mentioned the other day. So they're a very, bipolar team. It's like
very bipolar.
Every win, they're about to compete with the Warriors, and every loss, it's, get rid of Kyrie and everything. So it's a lot of, with every win and every loss, you have a lot of dramatic reactions, but I honestly think this Celtics team is going to be able to put together some type of run. I think when you get back to the center play and you God, his name is escaping me right now, but the backup center, Aaron Baines, you get him back there. He's kind of like what Andrew Bogut was for those Warrior teams. He's not going to play 30 minutes. He may play closer to 12 minutes, but what he does is he fouls the crap out of 2 people and blocks the crap out of 2 people in the first 5 minutes that he plays, so that not everybody can just run to the rack, which has been something that the Celtics has struggled against. And any team kind of struggles against the run, but the Celtics are just more of a, with Al Horford and some of the guys that they have on the interior, they're not necessarily the fastest team. So they need to rely on being a little bit technical. And when teams push the pace on them, it's tough. But at the same time, you have to play with a good pace. So trying to integrate guys like Hayward, where you get 30 points from him one night, then you get 5 points from him the next, and you wonder if you're going to lose guys, but and then you've got guys that are pressing a little bit. But I just think that this Boston team, and I don't even really have any statistics or anything that's necessarily pointing towards it, but I just think there's too much talent. I think in a series where you ultimately have to beat them 4 times, I think that does really do a lot. Beating any team 4 times, like you just mentioned beating the Warriors 4 times. That just sounds like impossible, you know what I mean? And for some of these teams that everybody's going goo goo gaga over in the East, the Bucks, they're the clear favorite in the East this year based on their record and how they've played, but they haven't won a playoff series yet with Giannis Antetokounmpo. So can we necessarily crown them? And Toronto Raptors, they've historically been a team that wins a lot of games in the regular season. They get to the postseason, and we've seen Kyle Lowry turn into an absolute pumpkin year after year after year.
Well, but that was before the arrival of Kawhi Leonard, right?
So Kawhi, I guess so. That's the thing. Then Kawhi Leonard is good enough to ensure that Lowry plays. I mean, I don't know.
Kawhi Leonard is
seen this
playoff
team
tested and knows. I think Kawhi Leonard will raise up that team come playoff time. And the Bucks are just kind of playing with house money. They got Giannis, and they have a steamroller effect, none of which I think applies to the Celtics. I don't think Kyrie is raising up the play of his teammates come playoff time, and I don't think they have that player that can just take over a game and steamroll through a series or even a playoff run. So I'm gonna have to disagree with you, man. I'm not feeling it with this Celtics team that there's some kind of it all comes together over the last 5 games and that feeds into a deep playoff run. I feel they're gonna go 7 games in the first round, which, by the way, if standings hold today, they'd be facing Philadelphia. Do you really think that they're gonna dispatch of the Sixers, like they were nothing? Which is what they would need to do to go into a second round with some amount of confidence to be able to hang with whatever team they're facing in the second round.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the Celtics would honestly be pretty pumped right now if the season ended this way because they pretty much had Philadelphia's number, regardless of the acquisition of Jimmy Butler. So I don't necessarily know if that's really to be honest, I don't even know if that's really a rivalry. The Celtics have absolutely had their way with them over the past few years. So, I mean, if the series, if things were to end now, I think that would pretty much be best case scenario for the Celtics. And honestly, if you're the Celtics, you have to feel confident in that you can win that series. If you're the 76ers, you have to feel confident that you can win that series as well. But I think the expectations definitely that the Celtics would be able to win that series. Could it be tough? Could they drag it out to 7 games? But I think the expectation, the talent. We just watched Brett Brown kind of coach himself out of victories last year. I don't know. I mean, the end of some of those games, just absolutely wasting away a couple of victories. They could have certainly extended that playoff run. So I don't know. I've seen Brad Stevens outcoach Brett Brown a lot, but I think the bigger thing is, I guess the Bucks are really the team that everybody's looking at right now in the East as the team that can kind of do things. I'm not that sold on the Raptors. I don't know. I don't really feel like they have the horses outside of Kawhi Leonard, and when things slow down, and I just don't trust them. Lou Williams hit the all-time benchmark, so bench scoring mark in the NBA. And I wonder why that's such a big achievement or why that's so celebrated. Because it's basically the best guy. Like, there's probably guys that were 3s and 4s on teams that aren't going to get as revered as this guy who scored the most points coming off the bench. Why do these things get celebrated?
Good question. Good. I don't get it either because it's like your bench guy, your
Everybody's
sixth
talking
man,
about
your
this
sixth
Lou
man
Williams
plays
scoring
as-
mark. I'm like, what did he do? How many points did he score? He just scored like 30 points in a game and got
just
to
a
the
matter of, like,
got to the all-time.
right. His name, he wasn't penciled into the starting lineup, but he probably played more minutes.
And
than,
I kind of like
you
Lou
know,
Williams, but I mean,
Hey, you know,
it's just I think it's funny that I don't know, be the best at being sixth best, and that's what's celebrate. I don't know. I don't know.
well, you know,
I think he has like 12,000 career points. I mean, do we want to like line up the guys who have over? So I don't know. I don't know why we celebrate those types of things. I like Lou
wasn't
Williams.
McHale considered the original sixth man? You know, like
Yeah.
coming off the bench, but he would end up playing 30 minutes a game. So it's like,
I
what
never
difference
consider
does it
those
really
guys.
make?
Yeah, I always thought it should be like a minutes limit. I really think it should be like guys that play less than 20 minutes a game. Like 20 minutes. I don't know. 22 minutes maybe is the mark, like the per game average or something, and below. I don't know. I think that'd be pretty exciting. There's so many guys that play well in limited minutes that you just never see.
Yeah, I feel like
Like that center from
Walter McCarty. Walter McCarty, I mean.
Like that center for the Knicks who blocks everything in sight, the blockness monster. What's that guy's name? Mitchell Robinson. God. John. So as we continue to swoon over Giannis, he actually put in a career high 52 the other night in a loss actually to the Sixers, where he went back and forth with Joel Embiid, who put up 42. It leads me to think. I mean, Ben Simmons is a great player, and I think they have big aspirations for him, but I don't know how much more Ben Simmons is going to grow as a I mean, the guy can hardly make a free throw. The guy can hardly make shots. Feel like we're considering him. I mean, he's an all-star. He can rebound the ball a lot and pass well, but I guess, like, moving forward, how do you kind of look at, like, Ben Simmons? I mean, do you think he's a stud? Do you think he's, like, a bust compared to what you thought he would be? I just feel like he's overrated. Like, I feel like it's Joel Embiid, and then, like, it's like way I mean, like a considerable step. And then Simmons is there, and he puts up decent numbers because he's tall and can pass well. But I don't know. Some of the scoring leaves a lot to be desired.
Sure. No, I mean, I think as long as, like you were just referencing, in the game against the Bucks, as long as Embiid is getting 30, 35 points a game, whatever Simmons is doing to help that, gravy. Like
I think Simmons.
If I was, I think the Sixers should be looking at Butler to take up some more of that secondary scoring as opposed to Simmons.
Yeah.
Simmons should be the facilitator to get the ball to Embiid. Work the offense through that. Maybe and Embiid is going to grab tons of offensive rebounds and should be looking to dish to Butler for any of that scoring off of a secondary
certainly.
chance.
And Jimmy
like
Butler's-
Simmons, I mean, you're right. Simmons can't shoot, but I don't think before they got Butler, like, he needed to be able to shoot. And then you're talking, can he develop that shot? Probably not. But
'Cause,
now that they have Butler, he might not need to have to develop that shot.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I think regardless, at some point he's definitely going to have to develop a shot. And, yeah, absolutely, Jimmy Butler, that'll help. And, yeah, absolutely, Jimmy Butler has not played as advertised since he's been with the 76ers. I mean, I felt like the first week it was like a honeymoon stage where he had a couple game winners. And then, like, 2 weeks in, he was already complaining with Joel Embiid. And if you're a team looking at Jimmy Butler, and I'm not even, but I feel like it comes down to, say Kyrie leaves. for example, or even say he stays. And when you look around, it's typically what free agents you can get. Like, you can't really choose, like, all right, we want the best. I mean, you can make your offer at him, but you kind of have to deal with, and if Jimmy Butler is coming around and doesn't sign that max deal, doesn't sign an extension with the 76ers, you got to look at it like this is a 28, 29-year-old who's had problems with coaches in 3 areas, talked his way out of town. Are people going to line up to give him a supermax? I would assume somebody is going to, but is that something you want to sign up when Jimmy Butler's close to 30 at that point, and you're looking at paying those max guys? You know, ultimately, that gets to be like $45 million a year. You're talking some cases, guys like Harden, Steph Curry, guys that trigger different things to get the supermax. But I don't know. I guess I look at that, and I feel like Jimmy Butler has kind of been exposed with this move to the 76ers because I really liked him with the Bulls. He kind of talked his way out of there, and you kind of understand that. But then he talked his way out of Minnesota, was just doing all the, and then, you know, so it's just like at some point you expect these guys, if Jimmy Butler was 25 and then had talked his way out of a couple, but I mean, guy's almost going to be 30. You got to think he's probably not getting much better, as you talked about. Could definitely uptake more of the secondary scoring, but really left his impression on the game as a defensive guy coming in and has kind of built the offense around it. So, definitely something to, consider there. But I guess as far as some of these teams that are going to be interesting moving forward, I feel like the Nuggets are going to be a complete fraud in the Western Conference.
Okay.
Playoffs this year. I like the Nuggets moving forward, but I just feel like this team is Jokic with 4 young shooters at all times kind of around him, or some formation of that. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of leaders there. It seems like there's a lot of guys who can score 15 points around Jokic, and I don't know how well that's going to bode for them over the grind of a playoff series.
I can agree with that. They need to be. This will be their year where they're tested, and then if they can kind of have
I
the
love
same
what
type
they
of
are moving forward.
Right. If they can replicate their regular season next year with the being tested in the playoffs, then they'll be a lot more dangerous. I'm with you on that.
Sometimes when you're coming up the first time, you can win a lot of those regular season games on grit, and you can win a lot of those games on teams not quite we'll take a loss to them, whatever. And then it obviously becomes something. But I absolutely love what the Nuggets have moving forward. Even getting Michael Porter Jr., while he hasn't been able to be, anything absolutely incredible, he's he's a guy that we pretty much all looked at as a potential number 1 pick who slid down to 13. They've got a lot of great shooters. And Jokic is honestly playing at just an incredible level. I literally just can't understand how he averages so many assists per game. I watch it, and I just, a center who can literally get 8 assists every single game is it's some pretty interesting stuff. And then the guy can also shoot the 3. So, there's really not a whole lot that you can ask for. And every single year, this guy elevates his points per game, his rebounds per game. So somebody to potentially be an MVP candidate as, this younger NBA kind of moves through, and who we look at as the future stars. I think I think that the Denver Nuggets are definitely in a great position moving forward. They've just got a lot of young talent, but this year I think it could be tough when you've got teams that are a little bit more experienced, kind of know how to grind it out, have those set rotations. I don't really look at the Rockets as I don't know. I just still feel like when the Warriors get right, that they can absolutely just kind of dismantle anyone that they want. I think that the Rockets are probably the best test to them, but I still think when they just get buttoned down, I think that they're just going to roll through whoever they play, and I don't really see anybody in the Western Conference being able to give them a great run. Like I said, I could see the Rockets maybe doing something, but I still think that's a 6-game series max. I don't know. That's my view on the West. I still feel like it's really a one-horse race, especially with this season. We'll see what happens moving forward. But when you have those 5 locked in, and you have Steve Kerr, the coaching, I mean, they could certainly. There's areas where you can fall. We've seen it. So many teams. The third championship is always the toughest. There's always lapses. You look at the 0-2 Lakers. You look at some of those Bulls teams. Those last ones were always the toughest ones, the smallest margins of victory. But I just think they're positioned incredibly well to, they're the number 1 seed, and it feels like they're not even trying. Yeah. If you ask me,
I agree.
It feels like they just want to. And it's almost like we've reached this point in the NBA where it's like, is this season even important? Because we've heard guys like Kyrie say, let's just get to the playoffs. Golden State seems to look like they're just getting to the playoffs. You see one of their stars pretty much get rested every night.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. How does this bode for – it doesn't seem like a good trend for the future of the NBA. I feel like they're always trying to see what they can do to make guys not quite – tank or whatever the case or take games off.
Yep.
But there's always just coaches are going to find some way to rest their players.
Yep.
Give me a little skinny in the NHL.
Oh, well, we got a few minutes left in the show here, and we have a final on the Bruins game against the Islanders, in which we saw the return of Pastrnak from his non-sports-related wrist injury, which I can't quite
sound
tell.
Great.
No, I know. Well, it was apparently an off-ice team event, and he was around his teammates when he slipped and fell and injured his wrist. Is about as far as I can kind of figure out what happened there, but. The good news is that he was not needed in terms of scoring for the Bruins to produce a 5-0 victory tonight over a really solid Islanders team, an Islanders team with 2 of the best goaltenders going right now, and the Bruins were still able to put up 5 against them with their 4th line accounting for 3 of those goals. Corrali scored 2, Achari had 1. And then the scoring was rounded out with Patrice Bergeron getting 1, and one of my rising stars of possibly becoming one of my favorite players on the team, Jake DeBrusk, got his 23rd on the year. So, you factor in that Pastrnak returned tonight, and the Bruins manhandled a really solid New York Islanders team. That's looking good because they're going to need to have all hands on deck if they're able to get to a matchup against Tampa Bay. The Tampa Bay Lightning are probably going to set a points record this season. They have, I think it's 15 losses on the year.
So this is an 0-4 Mariners situation we have here. A best regular
there
season.
There you go. Now you're talking. That's what I'm wondering, because the Bruins were in Tampa Bay's position a few seasons ago. Finished the regular season with, I think it was 114 points. Somewhere tied for 3rd most all time. Played pretty decently in the playoffs, but I don't even think they made it to the conference championships that year. So, the way that the seeding will go, however, the Tampa Bay will face their first 2 rounds. If the playoffs were to start now, their first round I think would be against I want to say maybe the Montreal Canadiens, who have been very mediocre all year. So, I mean, bank on Tampa Bay getting to your Eastern Conference Finals, and the Bruins. I think the Bruins will match up well. So, if the playoffs were to start today, the Bruins would be going up against Toronto, a high-scoring team, but also a team that's pretty weak on defense, very weak and suspect in their goaltending. But the Bruins fought tooth and nail to get past Toronto last year. That series went 7 games. I would see it going 6 or 7 again this year. And and it's like when for teams that are not quite the elite of their conference, but they're top 2 or 3, if they have to put it all out on the line in that first round matchup and go 7, it's really hard to continue a deep playoff run. So that's kind of where my biggest concern is with the Bruins heading into now. They have 9 games left on the season. Just stay healthy. They're not really gonna change much in the seeding. They have, I think, a 4 or 6 point advantage over Toronto. And just the way that the NHL playoff seeding kind of works out, which is kind of crappy. The Bruins technically are the number 2 in terms of points. They're number 2 in the conference, but that second seed goes to the top team from the Metropolitan Division. So the Bruins would actually go in as a 3 seed, which would pit them against Toronto. So again, a matchup that I think they could take, but at what cost? At what level of kind of effort and expenditure? So seeing tonight's result, and there were a ton of games in the NHL tonight. So I don't my seeding. What I'm talking about could be. Yeah, it looks like the Canadiens beat the Flyers, so the Canadiens are still hanging on to a playoff spot. The Hurricanes are in a shootout with the Penguins, so that's non-division, but both of those are probably going to be playoff teams. So, I think for the last 9 games that the Bruins have, stay healthy, and just don't overlook the first round matchup. They're the 2 best teams in the conference are clearly Tampa Bay and Boston, and don't take it as a given that Eastern Conference final is going to be a Tampa Bay Bruins matchup. But if it is, I kind of like the Bruins odds.
All right.
The Bruins got the goaltending. Tampa Bay does too. Hey, it's going to be a fun playoffs in the NHL.
Well, that's why I never let you talk, because I thought we could go to you with 7 minutes left and still cover the fact that the tournament brackets are going to be out. The games are starting Thursday. I'm picking Zion. Obviously, I'm going with Duke because I'm a terrible college basketball fan, and just go with the top dog.
I hate college basketball.
Not get enough of Zion Williamson, who came back in the other game against
who is Zion Williamson playing in the first round? What state are they in? What college is that?
Zion?
I know. I do know. I know who you're talking about.
Well, all I'm saying is fill out those brackets. Hopefully Nancy from accounting doesn't win again. And good luck, and we'll catch you next Tuesday. For Brian, I'm Billy. Open season, we're out.